What's going on, guys? In this video, we are discussing why everything feels so hard in your 20s. I'd been wanting to make this video for a while, just hadn't really put it together. Recently, I made it into a community post inside of my school group, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the post to you, and then I'm going to give you guys some more commentary when I'm finished and just some more insight into this topic and discussion. So let's get into it. Like I said, title of the post, Why Everything Feels So Hard in Your 20s. I think one thing that unites basically all men is a feeling that their 20s are brutally hard. It's a giant string of rejections mixed with the uncertainty of if it will ever end. In your early 20s, women aren't interested in you. You're broke, and you still largely have the adolescent mindset you had as a teenager. At some point in here, you usually get your heart shattered by a girl. You're working one or two crap jobs to pay the bills. It's the kind of thing you are embarrassed to tell people you do because you feel like you should be doing, quote, better. And the jobs don't even pay enough to have any level of a respectable life either. At one point at 23, I was working 80 hours a week combined between a UPS store job and my YouTube channel, and I couldn't afford an apartment. Then there's your peers. It seems like everyone around you is doing better than you. You feel embarrassed at your own existence for many years. Then you hit your mid to late 20s. And by this point, you've probably figured a couple things out. Maybe something clicks, it's a promotion at work, or you make a transition into some new career, and now your income is a little better. You've managed to get out of the heartbreak of your early 20s, and maybe you've even gotten in good shape. For some, this is good enough. They get an apartment and a girlfriend, and the feeling of inadequacy subsides. But if you're like me and you have ambition, it honestly gets worse. I'm 27. At my age, Alex Hormozi was a millionaire. Ilia Topuria just won his second UFC title belt at 28. By this point, Drake was far and away the top artist in the world, and here I am doing better than most, but not nearly as good as the people I compare myself to. It feels like it's now or never in your late 20s, and that weight can be overwhelming at times. And on top of that, you have something to lose. In your early 20s, you have nothing. In your late 20s, you have established something, and in order to get to the next level, you will have to risk what you have for something better with no guarantee on if or when it will work out. This leads to the title of the post. Why does everything feel so hard in your 20s? Why does it all feel so overwhelming and like you're constantly behind and clueless as to if you'll ever make it? The answer is actually quite simple. You're a beginner, and so am I, to be honest, at the game of life. When we graduate high school or college, we have this expectation on ourselves that we have completed training and now we should know how everything works and we should just succeed. But we all know school doesn't prepare us for shit. So basically, ages 18 to 24 is level one of life. You are a white belt at this game, and more specifically, you have to get good not just at the game of life, but at certain aspects of the game of life. In order to make money, you have to become excellent at something or multiple things, and this applies to any other pursuit you have. If you want to get good with women, you're going to have to, go on a lot of dates, get rejected a lot. If you want to get in shape, you're going to have to fuck up your workouts a lot, fuck up your diet, figure this stuff out. It doesn't happen overnight, guys, okay? In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it takes an average of 10 to 15 years to obtain your black belt. Think about that. In the U.S. Army, the average general is 54 years old, and he wasn't promoted to the rank of general until he was 49 years old. Assuming he graduated West Point at 22, that means a man devoted 27 years of his life to reach the pinnacle rank of his profession. Some of you aren't even that old. School trains us to think short term. Classes change every semester. We get regular breaks throughout the year. Tests are given out multiple times per month as milestones of development. In real life, the timelines are much longer. Progress is measured in years and decades, not weeks and months. I've been on YouTube since 2020. Feels like a long time, and I've grown a ton in that time, but in reality, that's 5 years. I'd be a purple belt if this was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Even weight training, I'd only just now have achieved my black belt in. So understand that your 20s are hard because you just haven't had the time to get good at anything. Ilya Taporia was wrestling at 4 years old. Mr. Beast was making daily YouTube videos at 10. Drake was a child star at 10. These people aren't magical. They just found their thing at an early age, and so they have gotten the rewards earlier than everyone else. They were on year 10 before you ever started year 1. What you need to do right now is ask yourself, what are you willing to devote a decade to being great at? Because that's what it's going to take if you want truly incredible results. Don't waste your time on short term games. They will only make the long term games take longer to win at. And the other thing is, the time is going to pass either way. So you can be a 35-year-old who was distracted all the time and accomplished nothing, or you can be a 35-year-old who is a master of something and who's become a black belt at the game of life. It's your choice. But just remember, life is supposed to feel hard in your 20s. You are a beginner. So this honestly, like today for me has been one of those days where it just feels like life has it's just like hitting me with a bunch of bullshit, and things just don't feel like they're happening fast enough, and that feeling of like, geez, I should be in a better place than I am right now was really like pounding on me a lot, and it caused me to want to make this post and to really reflect on timelines and the amount of dedication that it requires to truly achieve something, and realizing that I make this mistake and everybody makes this mistake of thinking way too short term. We think that we should be excellent at something after like a year of work on it, guys, and it just doesn't work that way. You're dealing with true masters out here, right? Like imagine you were an NBA rookie, right? To be an NBA rookie, you've been playing basketball probably since you were like 7, 8 years old, probably even younger than that. You've been groomed. You've been taught by the best college basketball coaches, the AAU programs that trained you. You step into the NBA as a rookie, and you still are over 20 years behind LeBron James, and he is smoking you because he's got that much time on you. So you got to understand, like the game of life is much longer than we think it is. And because of this, we just get in this space where we think we should be doing so much better than we are. And so it's just good to remember that, like, it's supposed to be hard right now. Like realistically, if like you're mad at women, or like you feel like you don't get the results you want with women, how many dates have you been on? How many hours have you actually devoted to like actually having a sex life? You know what I mean? It's like, why would you be great at this if you haven't done it much? Or, if you're new to the gym, I remember when I was probably like 17, something like that. No, I think it was 19 actually. I was 19 years old, and it was the first time I was like, you know what? I'm gonna really like do like a cut. So like I'd been like weight training forever, and I didn't really know how to diet, but I'd been lifting weights, and I wasn't fat or anything, but I was just like, I want to get my abs to show up. And so I was gonna do a cut. And my cut that I was gonna do was I was going to eat chicken and broccoli and rice. That was all I was going to eat, because I was like, I think that's what bodybuilders eat, right? Like I didn't know what to do, and really YouTube wasn't as big of a thing back then. So it was a lot harder to go look it up, I guess you could say. And so basically I was just like, okay, like I guess we're eating like chicken, broccoli, and rice. And this was the plan. And so I ate that every day for like a few weeks. And I was just starving. I was eating like 1,200 calories a day, probably doing this. My strength crashed. I was losing muscle just as much as I was losing fat, if not more. And eventually I stopped this because I was like, this isn't getting me what I wanted. And so you got to understand, I started weight training when I was like 14. So I'd been doing this for 5 years, and I'm still making these just catastrophically stupid errors. You know what I mean? Like you got to understand, like the best thing you can do if you want to achieve something fast is get around somebody who's already achieved it and let them coach you and mentor you. That's the best way. But even still, it's going to take a long time, because you got to drill things and do the reps and get your mindset in the right place. But if you don't have that coaching, like you have no right to expect something to happen fast. You're going to have to make every single mistake in the book until you've really figured this thing out. I think it was Alex Hormozy who said, an expert is somebody who has just found all the ways to fail. So it's somebody who basically they failed every way you could possibly fail. So now the only thing they can do is succeed. That's kind of what an expert is, right? And so like in this game of life, if you feel like your 20s suck, it's like, dude, you're probably just a beginner at everything. Like I said, I've been doing YouTube I uploaded daily for like a year and a half straight when I started YouTube. I've done over 700, maybe 800 YouTube videos at this point. And I can speak well on camera, and I'm definitely better than like anybody who's never done this thing. But like I said, like compared to Mr. Beast, I haven't been doing it this long. And even recently, I figured out certain insights that to me are just like, of course, I should have known this kind of thing, but you don't, right? Like things you just figure out over time. You're like, of course, I need to do this with my branding. Why did I not know this already? But like, this kind of thing happens, and it'll happen to you in every area of your life, every part of your career, when you're dealing with women, when you're dealing with your body, when you're dealing with, just people and interpersonal skills. When I was, I think before I turned 20 years old, I had gotten in 4 car crashes, and I haven't gotten in a single car crash since, right? Because I was driving like an idiot teenager, and then I grew up and matured and learned how to take responsibility for my driving and pay attention. And now I don't have any issues like this. But like, when you're a beginner at stuff, you just suck at it, and it just understand, guys, like your life before you graduate college or high school is basically like you're in like the sandbox still. Like this doesn't even count. You know what I mean? And then you exit that, and now you're like on beginner mode. You're just like, the game is, you're just getting started, and you have not put the time in. And like I said on here, you want to figure out what is it that you're willing to devote an enormous amount of time to. And this was pertinent for me because I'm in a spot where, you guys know, I do real estate. And real estate is this thing to me where it's like a short-term thing where like it pays well enough to take care of like a good lifestyle for myself. I mean, I make over 6 figures doing it and all that. And so like that's good, right? I'm grateful for that. It's a way better spot than I was at in my early 20s. But on some level, it's like it doesn't really get me where I want to go in the long term in a lot of ways. And I tried to make it work as a long-term option. And the more I do it, the more I'm like, I just don't know if do I really want to dedicate my life to this in a certain way? And when you have that mindset of understanding, like, an Ilia Topuria who's 4 years old and devotes his life to being a world champion fighter, and now he's a double champ in the UFC, or you're Drake and you're a child star at 10, and now you're the biggest artist in the world for over a decade, like 15 years going. I think he's been the top streaming artist and stuff. Like, you understand that, like, really anything is possible with time. And when you understand that anything is possible with time, you understand like there's no good reason to play games that you're not willing to play for a long time, because all the rewards are going to come later on anyways. And so why are you playing games that you can't see yourself playing forever? And that's like a question I deal with personally when it comes to my career. Like the thing that I could see myself doing forever, truthfully, is building a brand, doing content, speaking. I like marketing, I like branding, I like content creation. These are the things I could see myself doing. I could see myself doing athletic stuff my entire life. I could literally see myself weight training, boxing, doing that kind of stuff literally until I can't walk anymore. Like, that's my favorite stuff to do. And so it's kind of this thing of like, all right, I'm not going to be great at any of this if I don't spend time on it. And so I got to put that time in. And then you start asking yourself, it like forces you to think about where you're going to put your energy, and putting your energy on the things that you're willing to do for a long time, and stop with the short term thing. I've done this in the past, and a lot of guys do this where they're like, okay, yeah, I need everything to change in a month. They'll be like, I need everything to change in a month, or, oh, it's going to take too long to get this certification or this thing. That's 6 months of my life. I'm not going to bother with that. Or it's a year to get that thing. I just don't have the time for that. And then the time passes anyways, and you're still stuck in the shit thing you were doing at the beginning that you didn't like. And so like I get into this phase sometimes where I'm like, yeah, but I need this thing to work out immediately so that I can do it. And then you just have to remind yourself, the time is going to pass anyways, and there are no shortcuts. In fact, the only shortcut is to just do the thing over and over and over again until you get great at it. And when I say over and over and over again, I don't mean like 10 days. I mean like 10 years. And when you understand that, you're just like, I just need to like be patient, pick the things that I can do for the long haul, and as much as possible, eliminate the short-term games from my life. Like, if you honestly think, I've made the videos about relationships and things like that. And like, I'm not a huge fan of the modern relationship, but I would tell you, like, if your big thing is you want to get like married, you might as well just go ahead and start playing that game now. Like, because the getting married game is a bit of a different game than the like hookups on Tinder game. You know what I mean? It's like you might as well go ahead and get started with that because you're going to go on a bunch of bad dates. You're going to have to figure this out. You're still going to have to learn intersexual dynamics and all that. You might as well just like direct it at the right energy. And if you don't see yourself doing that, or maybe it's like not that big of a deal if you do it or not, then, you know, go do something else. And it's the same, you know, with fitness. Like you kind of want to construct this ultimate version of yourself that's like 10 years out, or at a minimum like 3 to 5 years out if 10 just feels way too far out. And you want to just kind of just be like, okay, this I can do anything in 10 years. And so with that in mind, what do I want my life to look like in that time? And then you just set your life up so that every single day you are stacking days. You're putting in the reps so that in 10 years you're there. And what happens is once you achieve this thing, you become that person that everybody looks at and they're like, how the fuck did he do this? And they start feeling inadequate compared to you because they're like, how is this guy so successful and I'm not? And it's like, because 10 years ago, I started doing this thing in the dark when everyone was doubting me and judging me and wondering why I was doing this thing. And now all of a sudden it finally paid off. And that's just kind of how this game works, right? Like everybody's getting judged in the beginning and it's like a 10-year period of getting judged and you suck at things and like progressively getting a little bit better until eventually you just become amazing at something and of the world rewards you for that. And so it's just really a game of like figuring out what that is, you know, and just stacking those days, going after that thing. I made the video towards the end of 2024 called The Timeline Effect, where I talked about this. And I talked about how like if you stretch your timeline out, you realize anything's possible. Like if I actually told you like, what could you get done in 10 years? You'd be like, oh, I could get anything done in 10 years. Like if I actually gave you like, I'm like, you have 10 years and the only thing you're going to do in this 10 years is figure out how to make $1 million per year. Could you do it? Everyone would kind of be like, yeah, 10 years is a long fucking time. I could do it in that time. And so it's like, okay, if that's true, then it's like, okay, well, if you can basically do anything in 10 years, then figure out what you're going to do in 10 years. And then just go make that happen. But people lose sight of this because 10 years is like this number. And then when you get into 10 years, you're just like, holy fuck, that is just such a long amount of time. Like it's incomprehensible when you're on day one, but you just keep stacking those days and stacking those days. And eventually you hit this point where it just starts compounding and you will get some wins along the way, right? Like in year 3, you're going to be better than on day 1. And then year 6, you're going to be better than year 3. And then you get to year 10 and you're this grand master who understands this thing at a level that the average person can't even fucking comprehend, guys. So this is my motivation to you guys to just, you know, think long term, understand your 20s suck because you're a beginner. That's all there is to it. Get over it and then just start stacking days. And I promise you, the quicker you start stacking days, the quicker your life will get easier because you'll figure out how to play the game of life. You'll start getting rewarded faster and faster, and the rewards will be bigger and bigger. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'll talk to you later.